Hey guys, it's Laura. It is September 14th, 2024, and as of today, I have completed my modified 75 hard challenge. I technically completed the challenge on September 5th, but it's taken me a little bit of time to get around to making a video. In this video, I really wanted to do a comprehensive summary on my thoughts with the 75 hard challenge and my results with the 75 hard challenge. And I also wanted to take the opportunity to give some tips to anybody who thinks that they might want to do 75 hard. But before I begin, as always, I wanted to go over what the 75 hard challenge is. So the 75 hard challenge is actually a program created by a man named Andy Frisella. Participants in the program need to complete 5 tasks every day for 75 days. These tasks are drinking a gallon of water, taking a progress photo, reading 10 pages of a nonfiction book, doing 2 45-minute workouts, one of which must be outside, and sticking to a diet with no alcohol and no cheat meals. Participants need to complete these 5 tasks every single day for 75 days, and if they don't complete any of the tasks on any day for any reason, they have to restart the challenge again from day 1. Throughout this challenge, I have been making weekly update videos to talk about how I've been feeling and what my thoughts are on the challenge. And something that I've been very transparent about is the fact that I personally made one modification for myself, which is instead of drinking a gallon of water, I only drank 90 ounces of water a day. I'm going to talk a lot more about that modification later on in this video. The way that I want to structure this video is that I want to section it off into different topics. So I will probably put in the description of this video different topics and different timestamps for when I talk about those things. Because there's just so much that I wanted to talk about in this video, I actually wrote a script for myself. So if you see me looking down, it's just because I'm referring to my notes. So the first topic I'll cover is very brief, and that's just the question of how I found the challenge overall and whether I found it to be difficult. So I definitely did find this challenge to be difficult, not because of the tasks themselves, but because of doing these tasks repeatedly every single day for 75 days. Some days were obviously more difficult than others, but doing these tasks every day is something that takes a lot of time, and saying yes to this challenge necessitates saying no to other things in your life. I also found that I had a lot of motivation in the first few weeks of this challenge, but that motivation definitely wavered after about week 4, and I did definitely feel like the last couple of weeks of the challenge were a little bit of a slog to get through. There were certainly a lot of days when I was absolutely miserable and a lot of days that I just honestly wanted to quit the challenge, but I'm very glad that I stuck to it. I really think that just because of, doing these tasks repetitively for 75 days, 75 hard is probably one of the most difficult things I've ever done in my life. But overall, I do see 75 hard as something worth doing and something that I'm happy that I followed through with. Next, I wanted to talk about the individual tasks that you need to complete on a daily basis. So I'm going to go through these individually and talk about my experience with them. So first, I'll talk about the progress photos. So taking a progress photo every single day is probably the easiest task for me. Something that I did was I had a tripod that was set up in my bedroom against a white wall. And at some point throughout the day, I would take a photo of myself. Something that I talked about in my last update video is that I don't really think that I got a lot of value out of taking progress photos throughout this challenge. I think it would have made a lot more sense for me to take one photo at the beginning, one photo at the end, or even one photo after every week, because I didn't see a lot of day-to-day progress. I didn't really see the photos as motivating. I mean, I'm happy that I have a database of photos kind of, but I don't really know what I'm going to do with them. And I don't really think that this was a very important part of the challenge for me. I am going to share progress photos from the first day and the last day later on in this video, so stay tuned. The next task that I wanted to talk about is the reading rule. And throughout this challenge, I was actually able to complete 5 different books. And I'm not going to go through all of these books because, the point of this video is not a book review, but I will briefly mention some of the titles that I read. The first book that I started the challenge with was Financial Feminist by Tori Dunlap. This is a book mostly honestly targeted towards women, and it's about, obviously, personal finance. The next book that I completed is a classic, Atomic Habits by James Clear, and as the title suggests, it's about habit making. The third book that I read is called Body Neutrality, and the author is Jessie Neeland, and this book talks about body neutrality and body image more generally. The fourth book I read is What I Talk About When I Talk About Running by Haruki Murakami, and this book talks about the author's experiences as a writer and as a runner. And then finally, I read Bird by Anne Lamott, which was a book about writing. I found the reading rule to also be very easy to do, honestly. The rule is that you are supposed to read 10 pages of a nonfiction book every single day. At absolute maximum, this is something that took me about 20 minutes. There were definitely some days that I chose to read more, but just getting 10 pages done was pretty easy to do. The next task that I'll talk about is diet. So the diet that I chose to follow throughout the 75 Hard Challenge was eating in a calorie deficit. Now, I have been trying to eat in a calorie deficit pretty much since January consistently, and the only difference is that whereas I used to give myself 1 or 2 cheat days a week, for the duration of 75 Hard, I wasn't allowed any cheat days. I needed to eat in a calorie deficit every single day. So because I have been essentially sticking to this diet for like 9 months at this point, I really didn't find it too difficult to stay in a calorie deficit. It would get tedious sometimes to have to, track my calories and make sure that it was under the amount of calories that I was burning. But I didn't find it, overly difficult. Something that I tried on and off throughout 75 Hard was intermittent fasting. So I would say in the second half of this challenge, I became very interested in trying intermittent fasting alongside eating in a calorie deficit. And I did struggle with it a little bit, but as of now, I've actually been doing intermittent fasting for 2 or 3 weeks, very consistently. And I finally think that I'm in a place where intermittent fasting is working for me. So the diet that I stuck to for 75 Hard was kind of like effectively a combination of calorie deficit plus intermittent fasting. But for the purposes of 75 Hard, I really only counted the calorie deficit towards the diet that I actually had to stick to every day. The next task that I'll talk about is the workouts. And I think a lot of people, for them, the workouts will be the most difficult part of this challenge. And I definitely think that they were hard. I didn't necessarily find that, physically I was challenging myself every single day with these workouts. Like, to be honest, most of the workouts that I did were yoga or walking. But what I found difficult about the workouts is that, both of these workouts needed to be 45 minutes. And you also couldn't stack the workouts. So you needed to set aside 45 minutes at 2 different parts of the day to get these workouts done. Most days, honestly, this was not a problem. I would do 1 workout in the morning or over my lunch break and 1 workout in the evening. But some days, my days were just so busy that I was forced to do both workouts in the evening. And I also had to keep them separate. So I would end up doing one at like 5 p.m. and then the other one at like 10 p.m. So it was very annoying on those days, but it was not impossible. Something that I'd like to do when I go back and edit this video is insert some sort of graphic or visualization of the breakdown of the types of workouts that I did throughout this challenge. By far, the exercises that I did the most often were yoga and walking, but there was definitely also some days that I went for runs. There was a day that I did Pilates. So there was some variety in there. One other thing that I wanted to mention about the workouts is that in my first 2 weeks of 75 Hard, I struggled with my muscles being, overly exerted, despite the fact that I really wasn't doing any intense workouts. But I really think that this just has to do with the fact that there is like an adjustment period with 75 Hard. Your body needs to get used to moving every single day without a rest day. But once you get over the 1 or 2 week hurdle, you should be fine, and you really shouldn't have injury if you're not exerting yourself severely. Something else that I just like to say, and I'll definitely talk about this a little bit later in the video, is that the point of 75 Hard is not to just do super intense workouts every single day. Walking and yoga are both approved exercises for the purpose of 75 Hard, because 75 Hard is not a fitness challenge, it's a mental toughness challenge. And again, I'm going to talk about that later on in this video in more depth. The final task that I had to talk about is the water rule, which is drinking a gallon of water. As I mentioned, I modified this rule so that I was only drinking 90 ounces of water every single day. This was the most difficult rule for me. Prior to this challenge, I was definitely drinking less than 30 ounces of water a day. So making the jump to 90 ounces of water a day was very difficult. I felt like I was miserable throughout the entirety of the challenge, drinking 90 ounces of water a day. I didn't feel like I was ever drinking to my thirst. I just felt like I was drinking in excess every single day, and I didn't need all of the water that I was drinking. And my body also never adjusted to the water intake, which was really frustrating. The only two benefits I saw from the water rule were, number one, possibly my skin looked a little bit clearer, and two, I think it did help to some extent with regulating appetite, but that's it. And if you watch the videos that I made throughout this challenge, you'll definitely see that week after week, I'm just complaining about this water rule all the time. The next area that I wanted to address is whether I plan to continue following the rules now that 75 hard is over. So like I said, today is September 14th, and I completed the challenge just over a week ago on September 5th. So I've had about a week where I haven't actively been doing 75 hard. And I can say that the first two rules to fall off completely were the progress photos and the water. I have not taken a progress photo since I finished this challenge at all. And in terms of the water, I'm back to drinking less than 30 ounces a day, which honestly probably is not enough water for me, but I'm just so tired of tracking my water at this point that I don't ever think I will set myself a water goal again. I am still trying to read, and I'm in the process of reading some other books, but I'm not setting myself a daily reading goal like I was before. The two aspects of this challenge that I actually have been trying to keep up with are diet and exercise. So in terms of diet, I still am trying to eat in a calorie deficit most days, and I'm also doing intermittent fasting still. And in terms of exercise, I'm still definitely keeping active. I walk most days, and honestly, I just genuinely really enjoy walking, so I think I would really be doing that regardless. But truthfully, now that 75 hard is over, I'm really just thinking about other challenges that I want to throw myself into already. So something that I'm interested in doing is participating in Inktober in October. I'm also considering giving myself writing goals every day, like writing a certain amount of words every single day, because I am working on a writing project right now. And I'm also considering doing a no spend month, because I think, my artistic hobbies and my finances are definitely areas that I really wasn't able to give much attention to during 75 hard. So I want to funnel more energy into it now. The next topic that I wanted to get into, would I ever do 75 hard again? And honestly, never say never, but I really don't think that I would do 75 hard again. I think if I ever did anything resembling 75 hard, I wouldn't take progress photos. So that would eliminate an entire aspect of the challenge for me. I just truly did not see anything, like any gain from doing this progress photo aspect of the challenge. And not that it was like super time consuming. Like I said, I think it was the easiest part of the challenge, but I just don't think that I got any value out of that specific rule. And if I'm taking an entire aspect out of 75 hard, I don't think it should qualify a 75 hard at that point. So maybe I would do, a modified version of it again, or something similar to 75 hard, but I don't think that I would participate in it again. But again, never say never. Now I wanted to talk about my biggest takeaway from this challenge. Like, what did I learn with this challenge? And quite honestly, the takeaway that I have from 75 hard is that it really is a mental toughness challenge rather than a fitness challenge. I think that 75 hard is something that was talked about by Andy Frisella several years ago as a personal challenge that he had for himself. And I think that, as more and more people have tried to do 75 hard, it's kind of lost its meaning. So this challenge was created as a mental toughness challenge, but I think a lot of people today that do it see it as a fitness challenge or a weight loss challenge. And I could say that after having done it, or at least a modified version of it, I definitely think it is absolutely not a fitness challenge, not a weight loss challenge. It absolutely is a mental toughness challenge, and I will explain why. I think that at the end of the day, while you are exercising every single day, and while you are sticking to a diet every single day, what is really difficult about this challenge is honing your discipline and forcing yourself to do these tasks every day, even when you don't want to do them. This challenge will last 2.5 months. You're going to start off this challenge and you're going to feel extremely motivated to do these tasks. But as the 75 days tick by, you are going to feel so unmotivated and you are going to want to give up. And the real challenge is pushing yourself through those days that you do not want to be doing the tasks. In the last couple of days of 75 Hard, something that I was really thinking about is like a critique that I had of the program, which is, wow, this challenge is really encouraging people not to listen to their bodies and acting in a way that's not honoring what their body wants them to do. For example, if you're tired, too bad, you have to do 2 workouts. You know, if you want a specific food, too bad, you can't unless you could fit it into your diet. But something that I realized is that this is actually the point of the challenge. The point of this challenge is to cultivate discipline and to really learn to put your mind over your body. The reason that 75 Hard is not a fitness challenge and is not a weight loss challenge is because you can achieve fitness and you can achieve weight loss through many different means. You absolutely do not need to do 75 Hard to achieve these things. And also, you can complete 75 Hard and you may not lose a single ounce. Viewing this challenge as a means to fitness or a means to weight loss is also dangerous because this challenge absolutely fosters a perfectionistic all or nothing mindset. And I actually think that even for myself, I am finding it really hard now that this challenge is over to get out of that mindset when it comes to diet and exercise. So honestly, I think that a challenge like this can really work for somebody if they go in with the understanding that this is truly a mental toughness challenge, and throughout the challenge, the goal is really to hone your discipline. I think it is dangerous if someone goes into this challenge for the wrong reasons. The next part of this challenge that I wanted to talk about is my physical results. And I wasn't sure how much I wanted to get into talking about this because I really do think that one of the big reasons why this challenge is mostly seen as a fitness challenge or a weight loss challenge is because there's so much focus online on physical results rather than mental results. So I do want to share the results that I saw because I think that they're genuinely, a huge part of my story when it comes to completing 75 Hard. But truly, I think that all of these physical changes are secondary to the mental changes that I experienced. So I definitely noticed a lot of changes in my abilities. So obviously I was exercising every single day. I did different exercises every day. I noticed huge improvement in my physical abilities. So for example, I had a pretty consistent yoga practice, and throughout the challenge, I definitely noticed that I was getting stronger and I was getting more flexible, and I was able to sustain this yoga practice, which is honestly not something that I ever thought that I'd be able to do. I've tried yoga in the past and I've just given up with it, but I was able to do this practice for quite a substantial period of time, so I'm very happy about that. In terms of running, as compared to where I was at the beginning of the challenge, I can run faster and I can run longer and I can run further distances. So I'm honestly so pleased at myself about that result. Honestly, even in terms of walking, I've impressed myself because one of the days of this challenge, I got over 30,000 steps, which is more steps than my Fitbit has ever recorded since I got the device. And now, the moment that we've all been waiting for. How did my body change as a result of taking part in 75 Hard? I will say I lost 10 pounds throughout this challenge. So I will insert some progress photos here with the disclaimer of, please be nice to me. I am very happy with where I was at the beginning of the challenge. I loved the girl at the beginning of the challenge. So please be nice to my pre-75 Hard body. This is a screen cap from a video that I took of my body on the first day of the challenge. And this is a photo that was taken on the final day of 75 Hard. Honestly, I am so grateful to my body for putting up with me and allowing me to complete this challenge. Now I wanted to get into part of the video that is honestly difficult to talk about because I worry about how people online are going to respond to this aspect of the video, honestly. So that is, how do I feel about making a modification to the water rule now that the challenge is done? So as I mentioned many times throughout this video, I did make one modification to the traditional rules of 75 Hard. Instead of drinking a gallon of water, I only drank 90 ounces of water every day. And this may not sound like a big deal, but if you are someone who's familiar with Andy Frisella and familiar with the online community that partakes in 75 Hard, you will know that people take this challenge extremely seriously. And they don't allow for modifications to any of the rules. They say if you are making a modification to the rules, you are not doing 75 hard. And there actually is kind of a loophole that allows people to change the water rule. And that is you can go to a doctor and get a doctor's note. And if the doctor says you can't drink a gallon of water, you could drink what the doctor recommends. And I think that that's a little bit ridiculous, but that is how people view the challenge online. So in my week 1 vlog, I talked about why I made the water modification rule. So I did this for 2 major reasons. The first is, before actually starting 75 hard, I tried to drink a gallon of water one day and I got sick. I was also absolutely miserable throughout the entire day trying to drink this gallon of water. The second reason that I made this modification is because I did some research as to how much water I should be drinking every day. And as it turns out, the amount of water a person should be drinking every day has to do with a lot of factors, such as their sex, their height, and their weight. Based on the research that I performed, as a woman who is 5 feet tall, the recommended water intake for somebody my size is much closer to 90 ounces than a gallon of water. Because I know that people are very protective of 75 hard and doing these rules without any modifications, I've been very clear in all of my update videos that I've done a modified version of 75 hard as opposed to 75 hard proper. I'm definitely still supportive of the fact that I made this modification, and I honestly don't think that I would have done the challenge without having made the modification. So if you were to Google daily recommended water intake, one of the first results that will come up basically says that for men, the daily recommended intake is about a gallon of water, whereas for women, the recommended daily intake is closer to 90 ounces. So I found it always a little bit unfair that the creator of this challenge, who is a man, could drink a gallon of water and that would just be, the recommended dose for a person who is of his height, weight, and sex. Whereas, a lot of other people that do this challenge don't have the same physical attributes as him, but still have to have exactly the same water intake as him. I just thought that aspect of the challenge didn't make a lot of sense. And if you think about it, it definitely makes the challenge more difficult for people who aren't supposed to be drinking that much water in a day. And it also makes the challenge potentially dangerous for those people because it is possible to drink too much water in a day. Anyway, even with this modification, as I talked about, I think drinking the 90 ounces of water was the most difficult aspect of 75 hard for me to complete. So I definitely think that even in making that modification, I definitely still found the challenge to be difficult. And I definitely did complete what I set out to do with this challenge. My hot take is that I kind of think that, when this challenge was created by Andy Frisella, as I talked about, it was something that he made for himself. It was something that he said, this is a challenge that I'm going to create for myself. I don't think anybody else would be able to complete this challenge. But ever since then, I feel like, the challenge has gone viral. It's reached so many more people than he ever intended for it to reach. And, there are so many more people that want to participate in 75 hard now, people of differing traits and different abilities. And I really do think that the 75 hard community at large should have more tolerance for people who do make modifications to the rules. I think that if you do make a modification, you should just be consistent with it. You should be transparent about what you're doing, and you should still stick to the spirit of the challenge. I don't think that in making that water modification, I went against the spirit of 75 hard. But again, I know that there are a lot of people who would hear what I have to say on this subject and completely dismiss what I have to say. And if you want to die on that hill, you could die on that hill. That's fine. The final part of this video is I wanted to talk about tips for people who are considering doing 75 hard for themselves. So the first tip that I have is definitely just make sure that you're doing the challenge for the right reasons, as I talked about before, and make sure that you understand that this challenge is about cultivating discipline and mental toughness. It's not a fitness challenge and it's not a weight loss challenge. The second tip that I'll give is definitely before doing this challenge, do your research. Something that I talked about in my second update video is that there are a lot of mini rules affiliated with 75 hard. So obviously you have the 5 main rules of the challenge, which I talked about at the beginning, but there are also a lot of sub rules or qualifiers on these rules that are not immediately obvious. So for example, if you go outside and do an exercise, you can't have any form of cover on you, you can't have an umbrella. In terms of the workouts, like I talked about before, you have to space out the workouts. You can't just, stack them on top of one another. I think it's important to do a lot of research before doing this challenge because you might fail the challenge inadvertently if you don't do your research. My third tip for doing 75 hard is find something that keeps you accountable. So for me, making these check-in videos throughout the challenge definitely held me accountable because I would just tell myself that, oh my God, if I fail the challenge, I'm gonna have to make a video about it, and all 5 people that watch me online are going to know. So I know that making videos is not for everybody, so maybe you could do something like finding an accountability partner online. My fourth tip is to make sure to track your task completion. I know that Andy Frisella has an app where you can track your progress with this challenge. Personally, I just made my own checklist in a notebook, and as I was completing the challenge, I would mark off throughout the day which tasks I had completed and which tasks I hadn't. And then my final tip with this challenge is that this challenge is really not for everybody. And if ultimately you decide that you can't do this challenge for whatever reason, or you don't want to do this challenge for whatever reason, you shouldn't feel bad, and it doesn't mean that you're not mentally tough or whatever. Before starting this challenge, I was at a job where I had extremely little free time. There's no way that I would have been able to complete 75 hard while I was still working at that job. But when I decided to do 75 hard, I was transitioning into a new role with a new company, and my hours were much less intense than they were before, which left me with a lot of time to complete this challenge. I also imagine beyond work, there are just a lot of people who have, family commitments or extracurriculars, and doing this challenge is just not something that would be feasible for them. And I definitely think that that's 100% okay. There are other challenges out there to do, and 75 hard really is not the be all end all. In any case, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. And if you're considering doing 75 hard, I hope that you got something from this video. Now that 75 hard is over, I definitely do think that I would like to continue making videos on this challenge. I just really think that I'm going to need to consider what type of content I would like to put out. So feel free to subscribe because I definitely do hope to continue making content in the future. But anyway, thank you so much again for watching. I hope that you have a great day. Bye.